My distinct pleasure to welcome Leigh Bardugo to the Students Community Center this evening. #1 New York Times best-selling author of the Shadow of Bow trilogy, the Six of Crows duology, the Language of Thorns and the King of Scars duology with more to come. Her other works include Night House, which was a Goodreads Choice winner for Best Fantasy, and Hellbent. Her new novel, The Familiar, which we'll hear about tonight, released just yesterday and has already received glowing reviews from Deborah Harkness, Diana Gabaldon, and Catherine Arden, who said, "The Familiar is a wonderful transporting ride through a moment in history where you can see the height of Spanish power, but also sense the rot underneath." I really enjoyed it, and it definitely made me think, and of course, it's deeply romantic. Please join me in welcoming Leigh Bardugo.
I said recently on Instagram that releasing a book is like the first day of school, and seeing you all here is kind of like walking into the cafeteria and having somebody like, "Hey, come sit with us." So thank you for making the first day not so bad. It's been hard to think about what, I always tell a little story before we get into the Q&A, but it's been hard to know how to talk about this book because I don't want to spoil it. I'm assuming most of you haven't read it. If you have, why did you go so fast and so long to write? And also, talking about the Inquisition, things get bleak really fast. I'm like, and then torture, and more torture. So I thought I would talk a little bit about stubbornness because when my mom read the book, she said, "Lucia is so much better at pretending to be meek than you ever were." And I was like, I don't know if that's a compliment. But when I was a little kid, I went to Lutheran daycare. My family's Jewish, but not observant, but my mom was a single mom, so she was working more than full time, and this was the most convenient daycare for us. And they would pray every day at school, and I got like a special dispensation, like, little Jew, you don't have to pray. But the teacher was, my instruction was always, you should close your eyes and listen for God. And for a while I closed my eyes, but then I would get a little bored, and so I loved to look around and watch everyone, watch their expressions and watch them pray. And one day I got caught doing this. And the teacher said, "You're supposed to keep your eyes closed when while we're praying." I said, "Well, you're supposed to keep your eyes closed." She did not care for it. So she was like, "Well, then you can sit separately." She took me to this office, and she said, "The other kids are gonna have snack, and we're gonna have playtime, and I want you to sit here quietly and listen for God." And so she left me in the office. The problem was the office had a window, and the window looked out on the playground, and specifically on the swing set. We only had 2 swings at this daycare, and they were always taken. Like, you had to race out at recess to be like, "I want to get on those swings." But since all the other children, the good children, were napping and snacking and having playtime, I was like, nobody's on those swings. So I pulled off my first heist. I strolled casually out of the building to the playground, and I got on the swings, and I had a grand time having that swing set all to myself. Until the teacher came in. And she said, "I was very clear with you. I told you to sit and listen for God." And I said, "I can hear him better on the swings." And that was the first school I got kicked out of. And look, the reason I wanted to tell this tale was because I've sort of had a little problem with authority my whole life. It's no secret why. Like, I was raised by people who were constantly being like, "Don't listen to him, don't listen to her," and I was like, I am the only sensible person here. Still true, but that's just so not true. But when I was writing this book, I was thinking a lot about how often in our lives we're asked to pretend to be meek. but how often we also need to have the courage of our convictions, to know who we are, to be bold in our desires, especially if we're engaged in creative pursuits. And also that there's a second part to that, which is that if you want to put something creative, are there any writers or artists here? Yeah? But you know, like, this is not, we don't currently live in a time when, you know, change and curiosity are necessarily rewarded. We don't live in a culture that necessarily rewards people when they're coming up as opposed to when they've arrived. Wow. But we don't live in that kind of culture, so to put something out in the world requires a lot of courage. But I also think to get better at something, we have to have humility, right? Like, we have to be able to ask for help, to recognize that we need help, and to recognize where we can improve, and have the boldness to then improve. So I want to leave you with 3 thoughts before we get into the Q&A. That if you are an artist or a writer or somebody who's thinking about pursuing something creatively, to be gentle with yourself, because it is hard to be bold, and to be gentle with artists when they're trying to be bold. And the third thing, which is the most important, always round up on Goodreads. No, but really, please do. All right, so we are doing something a little bit different. We used to do live mic, but then we lost a lot of time with booksellers running around. So I asked if we could do the fishbowl questions, but we did ask for people to say their names, so I might call you out just so I can see your beautiful face. Okay. What is and continues to be your biggest inspiration for your writing? And of course, thank you. This is from Sophie. Where are you, Sophie? Hello, Sophie. Well, I love money. No. I wanted to be a writer from the time I was a little kid, right? Like, this was the dream job from early on. I was writing really bad story. I have a very clear memory of writing a story called, I don't remember what it was called, but it was about a girl who was an orphan. They were always orphans. My parents were not having adventures. They were always orphans, and this girl, I think actually this one, her mom was really mean, so she ran away from home to live in a hotel. She paid for it, you can say. The hotel was called Pinkella Champanella. Because as a kid, I thought pink champagne was the classiest of champagnes. What did I know? It was pink. But I wanted to be a writer very badly. I just didn't know how to write a book. And it took me a long time to learn how to write a book and how to get past the voice in my head that said it wasn't good enough, would never be good enough. And so now that I'm here at the party, I just never want to go home. So that's my inspiration, is that it took a long time. I didn't publish till I was 37. It took me a long time to get here, and I just desperately want to like stay at the buffet eating shrimp. So that's my inspiration. Okay. Who or what was your inspiration for Nikolai? Nikolai was inspired by the Scarlet Pimpernel. I used to say he was inspired by Han Solo, but I think he was actually more inspired by Lando. He was also inspired by a character in the, oh my gosh, I'm blanking on the name, but it's Dorothea Dunnett's series. Does anybody know the series? I'm alone. Okay. But the Lyman Chronicles. That is a very challenging series, but also amazing. I literally think I understood every 4 out of 5 words in it. Like, that's how complex the vocabulary is, but very rewarding. And honestly, I think his optimism was a big inspiration for me. Oh wait, I didn't see who it was from. Ryan.
Hi.
Ryan! Hello! Sorry, belated hello for him. I think his optimism was an inspiration because so many of my characters are constantly in a state of angst. You know, they're constantly like, am I doing the right thing? Am I the right person for the job? And Nikolai was like, yes. Yes to both. So he's very fun to write. Okay. This is from Sarah Murkish? Sarah Murkish?
Nailed it.
Yes. That was unlikely, but bless you. How do write when you're in a lot of pain? And how do you balance chronic pain in writing? That's a tough one. Sometimes I don't, okay? Sometimes I don't. If I'm having a really bad spike, there's nothing I can do about it. And the thing I've discovered is that dealing with chronic pain is a little bit like dealing with writer's block. It doesn't do me any good to punish myself or to beat myself up, right? It's not gonna get me any further. If my body is not doing what I want it to do, yelling at it is not gonna change that. It's just gonna make me feel worse. And it might, in fact, create more of a cascade in terms of the mental and physical. And that's true for writer's block as well. The more we punish ourselves, the more we get in our own heads, the more we chastise ourselves, again, not good enough, you're doing the wrong thing. It doesn't help. What helps is taking some kind of action to take care of ourselves. And in the case of writing, taking some kind of action to break the freeze between our imagination and actually putting words on the page. The one piece of advice I would give is if you need to step away from your work, to pose a question in your mind for what you want to do next. So if you're at the end of a project, be thinking about the next project, gently, right? Not like you must start immediately, but like gently. Okay, in a curious way, what do I want to do next? If you're in the middle of a project and you know that you need to slow down or you have a day, just pose a question for yourself and then let your subconscious work on it. And this is actually great advice for if there are parents or people with full-time jobs who can only carve out 15 minutes or 30 minutes to write a day. That's okay, you can actually get a book done that way, but when you finish for the day, pose a question to yourself. Because while you're at work or dealing with your kids, your brain is actually going to be working on that question, so you're not starting from scratch the next time. And when you come out of that day or series of days that are heavy pain days, again, you're not starting from zero. You have ideas and imagination in the bank. I hope that's helpful. This is weird. I'm used to being somebody in the audience. Okay, this is from Kate. There could be many Kates here. All of the Kates rise up. Form a Kate army. Okay, who are your favorite authors to read? Ooh, hi. Holly Black. Kelly Lake, I adore. Growing up, the big ones were probably Stephen King, Octavia Butler, Louise Erdrich, Diana Wynne Jones, Neil Gaiman. I don't know. Maybe I don't like favorite book, favorite author, because I'm just like everything, all of it. I can tell you the books I hate, but I will tell you, I had one book that I disliked so intensely that I would read it to encourage myself. I was like, yes, you're not going to publish. Okay, this is fun. Just gonna get punchier. I had to get up at 5:15 this morning, and I am not made for that kind of life. Sadie. Hello, Sadie. What advice would you give a young author on effective or compelling world building? World building is a big question, right? I guess I would say a couple of things. One thing is don't let yourself get overwhelmed because it's a big question, right? And to me, I say this, but in some ways this is a natural thing that's going to come to you as you write more and as you get more pages under your belt, which is that world building sort of breaks down to two big things, which are sense of power and sense of place. So sense of power, we think, oh, magic system, government, but it can also be the power within a family, the power within a workplace. Even, there's power flowing within this room right now. It all belongs to me. And honestly, it all belongs to you. You can start booing me. Please don't. But to think about power in microcosm and macrocosm, that's usually where I start because it has the most initial impact on plot and on my outlining. Sense of place is more what we think of in terms of flora and fauna, the weather, geography, our trade routes, or the way that a world is physically built. It's the sights and sounds and smells, but it's also our resources, right? Thinking about what characters have access to, how they have access to them. And when those two things start to work together, you get sort of the big world forces like politics and economics when those things start working together. Now that all sounds very cerebral. It's not like that's the process I go through, but if you are looking to sort of improve your world building, one thing you can do is go to a book you love and read the first chapter and look through it and look for those flags of power and place and the information that you're getting and how you're getting it. Because usually that information, I think at its best, is being delivered in some kind of emotional way. It's not just, a speech or a lecture, it's coming through the experience of whatever character you're following in the moment. Read food writers, read travel writers, listen to people who are passionate about things, and pay attention to what you're passionate about and excited about. Like, I really wanted to research the Spanish Inquisition and this period in the Renaissance, which meant that the research didn't feel like a chore to me. I mean, occasionally it did, because I was like, what did they wear as their garments? Huge pain in the butt. Literally and physically, but this was something, I deliberately chose this time period because I knew I would be interested in it. And I think that our passion really needs to guide us, because a book is a huge commitment. So you need something that's going to keep you engaged and excited about it. I need like an easy one. From Alicia or Alicia. Could be you, hello. Where did the inspiration for the familiar come from? So, my ancestors on one side came from Spain. And when I say came from, what I mean is they were exiled from Spain. A little different. 1492, big things happened for Spain and for the world. And Isabel and Ferdinand say to the Jewish population of Spain, you have a choice. You can convert to Christianity, or you can leave. You can go into exile. And it really was exile. You couldn't come back. It was very challenging to come back. You would have to prove that you had converted to come back. And you could only leave with what you could carry. You were not allowed to take a coin out of the realm, so you couldn't take silver or gold or copper out. Most of my ancestors, that's what they opted for. They went to Morocco. We do know that there were relatives who decided to stay. They converted, they became what were known as conversos. And even their descendants were known as conversos. But they essentially got cut off from the rest of the family, because you also have the Inquisition, right? The Inquisition is formed not to persecute Muslims and Jews and Protestants, well, yes, Protestants, but later, but to persecute false converts, right? The fear was these people had converted, but they didn't mean it, and they were secretly practicing Judaism or Islam, and this was a threat to the soul of Spain. So the Inquisition is formed, and any contact you had with these people in exile, that could be really dangerous for you. That could land you in a cell. So that branch of the family tree withers and dies. And this book was a chance for me to try to draw it back into place and make it bloom again.